Rat as well.
My idea was to build Liverpool into a bastion of invincibility, you know, like. Napoleon had that idea, he would conquer the bloody world.
Evening everybody and welcome to Football Focus. Dave's got camera problems.
The intro there was a little bit stop-start for me.
Right, are we all good? Right, welcome to Football Focus, and it's season's review. It's obviously for Liverpool. You can tell by two of the team's attire. Ian, stand up, give us a 12.
Not getting a 12. You got a sleeve though.
Alison Becker's in the room. So, obviously, it's a season's review, speaks for itself. So, what we're going to do is just look at the key topics to talk about. We'll bounce it around the room. Anyone who's watching has got any questions about the season that they want us to answer, throw them at us. We'll assign them to someone in the room. And, you know, we'll have a good gab about what's happened this year to the Reds. So, starting at the start, reigning champions, a new season. So, we'll start with you, Ian. We've lifted the trophy at Anfield. Jordan's done the little baby step thing and thrust the trophy towards the night sky. New season starts. In your mind, where are you at and what are you expecting?
In my mind, Steve, I wanted us to go out there and get both the Champions League and the league. I wanted us to retain the league and get the Champions League as well. I wanted us to do that before Man City do it. That was where my mind was. Certainly wasn't expecting the season we got. I was on cloud nine, Steve. As soon as the season started, we had that win against Leeds. As half fought as it was, it's not the type of game you want for an opening season. But pretty soon the wheels fell off. The injuries came, and it was a tough old season, Steve. It was a tough one.
Okay, well, we'll cover that in a minute. It was just really the first bit of goal, mate. Give me your expectations. So I'll come to you, Lummers, or should I call you Navigator, because you make the same amount of appearances in here as he does in a Liverpool shirt, mate. Yeah, so Navi, give us your rundown of what your expectations were.
Yeah, I was a bit like Ian, to be honest. I thought we were going to rule the league for like another 10, 15 years, if I'm quite honest. That's how sort of buzzing I was. You know, I think I got a text from my old man saying, I've waited your whole life to see Liverpool lift the Premier League, and that's 30 years. And you think to yourself, we could dominate for the next 5 to 6 years comfortably after what we saw a couple of seasons before, leading up to it, winning the Champions League and then winning the Premier League. So my expectation was to go on and win it again. Not comfortably. I would have expected City to come back and compete. You know, after the signings that they made. So my expectation was to go and win, and yeah, the decline was probably from the injury of Virgil van Dijk, and then it just capitulated quite quickly, and it was really unfortunate. So yeah, my expectation was to win the league again this year, and probably next season and the following season, and just completely dominate, but wasn't to be.
No. Dave, coming to you. Sorry, mate, just before we come to Ian, looks like someone is waiting for Sky to speak to him after the game with that back down there, doesn't he? Yeah, so come to you, Dave. Just a quick one on your thoughts on, you know, we've spoken about this a number of times, but share it with us anyway about how you were feeling having broken the hoodoo, raised the trophy, and what your expectations were going into the next season.
A bit different to the other two. I think I came into this season with a bit of trepidation, really. Despite us winning the league last year, obviously, and being pretty much outstanding for 3 seasons, I'm just aware that football can be very cyclical, and I'd looked at. We had made a couple of signings, and I think that we'd improved the squad. But I'm also conscious about the fact that a lot of our players that played a lot of games and didn't miss many games. Obviously, not getting any younger, etc. And also the manager demands a lot of them, and I think they demand a lot of themselves. So, no pre-season, all those things, fatigue, both mentally and physical, Steve. And yeah, I wasn't quite so sure. I mean, people were talking about Liverpool dominating for 10 years. I never saw it like that because I think City have got resources that are beyond anybody else's, and money talks in football, unfortunately. But yeah, I wasn't being negative, but I was hopeful rather than expectant.
Fair enough. From my perspective, when we came back from lockdown, something had changed with the team, and we started to render points. We weren't playing particularly well. I think we came back from lockdown, looked at the league table, despite the club saying they don't. We thought it's just a matter of when. It's going to happen. It's not if. It's just a matter of when. What game is going to be the one that gets us over the line? And I thought we were off the pace. I didn't think we came back from lockdown strongly at all. And obviously, don't get battered at City the first game after winning champions. And I know we'd been at the golf club drinking and all that stuff, but I just thought the intensity, that's where I started to see the intensity go a little bit, to be honest with you. My thoughts were about this season was, and I quote Roy Keane on this, he didn't see anyone from Liverpool come out and say, we're going to do it again. Jurgen Klopp was quoted in the press as saying, we're not going to defend our league, we're going to attack it. And I like that. That ideology is absolutely fantastic. But, for those of us slightly older, Dave, you would have seen Liverpool win more than one title in 30 years. I certainly have. You took it for granted that they would turn up next season and go again. It's a cliche, but it's true. Good sides win the league, great sides retain the league, and that's a challenge still there for the club to fulfil for me. I thought they could have learned from Manchester City. I hoped they would learn from Manchester City's season where they dropped off, because you can't do it every year for a number of years. The signings, we've spoke about this many, many times. As good a player Thiago is, couldn't really see the fit. Turns out with a double pivot and the way the season's ended, I'm glad we did sign him because he controlled games and allowed us to get to positions to win them. The Simicast one was strange for me because we had Larouci and we had go out on loan, and we had Milner who could play at left back, and we let Lovren leave the club and we didn't replace him. So for me, that was a calculated risk, shall we say, and one that really came back to bite us big time, didn't it? So that's our thoughts on reigning champions and what comes next. So we're going to start with our young player of the season. So obviously we've talked a little bit about this in the group. So I'll come to you, Alex, first. Obviously with a little bit of time to think about this. Your thoughts on candidates for young player of the season, and then ultimately who you would have picked.
Well, candidates-wise, I mean, you look at our side, and I would say a young player of the year should be 22, 23 max, and then below. And we've got a lot of players sort of between 24 to 27 that have got experience. So I didn't put them into that bracket. So you're kind of looking at Nat Phillips, Trent, Curtis Jones. Apart from that, I don't know. Reece Williams. You obviously you'll put him in there straight away. Kelleher, the keeper. But apart from that, Nico Williams hasn't played a lot. So my four candidates would be Curtis Jones, Nat, Trent, and Reece. And my young player there, I've voted for and put forward is Trent. And some people listening might think, well, he didn't really have a good season, so you can't justify it. But for me, I believe I can. And for someone at 22 years of age to lose a Champions League final, to then win a Champions League final, and then win a Premier League in the space of 3 years, shows great character. And what he's been through the last probably 4 to 6 months, where a lot of people have hated on him, a lot of people have disrespected his performances. you know, Gareth Southgate leaving him out of the England side, to come back and show a bit of resilience and a bit of character and a good attitude to just knuckle down and prove a point. There's so many players out there that go the other way. You know, Paoli would agree. We've seen it before with youngsters that we've worked with and got great potential, just don't have the right attitude. And if there's anybody out there that is watching a young player who's been through a lot of good times, don't get me wrong, but a lot of bad times, he has shown great character, and I think he deserves to be Young Player of the Season because he's finished so strong. And to come off of what's happened for him, that's the reason why I've picked him. Not really on performances, because we all know he's been inconsistent, but everybody has been inconsistent for a number of reasons, but just to how he has responded, I would vote for Trent. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate that. Some good points there. An interesting selection at the end, obviously, because of a slightly indifferent season, but we'll get the other guys taken, and obviously I'll add mine to it. So I'm going to come to you next, Ian. Same type of thing, please. Can I get your candidates for Young Player of the Year, and obviously the one you settled on?
To be fair, I came into tonight's show thinking of Kelleher as Young Player, just because of the way he was thrown in, totally unexpectedly. Nat Phillips I thought about, but I think Nat Phillips is too old. I think he's 24, isn't he? 23, 24. So I wouldn't count him as a young player. I don't do it as the FA Premier League way they do it. You can play Young Player of the Year till about 30, as far as I know. But I think Alex has convinced me that I think the only person you can go with is Trent. He had a bit of a different form to start of the season, but the way he's come back from that, he's come back from his indifferent form, and he's ended the season as probably our player of the last 10 games. Since he was dropped from the England squad, he's been absolutely phenomenal. He's controlling games from right back, which is absolute magic. Don't know how anyone does it. I'm not an England fan at all, but I think him not going to the Euros will be absolutely horrendous. I think he should be one of the first names in the squad. So yeah, I can't look any further than Trent, Steve.
Fair enough, mate. Well, that's two for Trent. Appreciate that. Thank you, Ian. Thanks for your thoughts. Come to you, Dave. Your thoughts, please, on exactly the same thing. Young Player of the Year, please.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'm with Ian. I thought about Kelleher a bit, just because I think his performance is, in my mind anyway, warranted us not needing another backup goalkeeper if he's fit. I think he's good enough. I think he's got enough about him. I think his distribution's good. You know, I think he saved things from going in the net, which is, in my opinion, what goalkeepers are all about. Forget the distribution and things like that. I think he did well, but I would go for Nat Phillips, and the reason I'd go for Nat Phillips, I do take on board what Ian says about him being older at 24, but just coincidentally, my middle son Theo read me out a tweet today that Jude Bellingham would still be eligible for the Young Player of the Year award in 2027. And I think that would make him 24. I think. So, on that logic, I think Nat Phillips I think he bypassed by a distance any aspirations he had this season. I think he's bypassed any expectations that he would have had, or the manager would have had, or any fan, or any other player in the squad, any other member of staff would have had for him. I think he's been excellent. I mean, we discussed this before, Steve. I don't think Nat Phillips can. In my way of thinking, I don't think Nat Phillips can ever give. I don't think he can ever be more than a 7.5 out of 10 player. in any particular game just because of what he brings to the table. But his 7.5 out of 10 is like Virgil van Dijk's 9.5 out of 10. I think he's been excellent, and Trent has come back well. There's been a few other. Reece Williams has done pretty well, but yeah, for me, Nat Phillips.
Interesting choice. Obviously, got mentioned by both of the guys there, so unsurprising that he gets nominated. So I thought about this, and Kelleher didn't sort of come into my mind at all. Neither did Nat Phillips, given his age. I thought about what our season turned into, what was put in front of the players, what was at stake. And then I thought, imagine being Reece Williams and watching these centre-halves disappear one by one through injury and thinking, that's getting mighty close to me. Imagine the pressure that young man's been under playing in that team. And he's been far from perfect. He's made mistakes. Footballers do. But I think if you look at what he did before getting into our first team, Milton Keynes on loan, that's no grounding to go and play games at the highest level in a team that are trying to fight for Champions League. And in 6 games that he and Nat Phillips played together, we were unbeaten. In the 10 games leading up to the end of the season, we took 26 from 30 points. And he's played a big part in that. It must have been absolutely terrifying, really exhilarating, and then a bit more terrifying again for him every single time he went on that pitch. Because he's not the finished article, he's not the accomplished defender, he's got mistakes in him. We know what he's capable of. We know if everybody's fit, he doesn't get anywhere near that. But more importantly, he knows that. He has to go out there and dig in and really put in performances week in, week out. And I don't think the lad's had the credit he deserves. I know Ian's spoken about it before on another pod. We did as guests. But I think a lot of credit goes to that young man, because whatever football brings for him in terms of his career, and the likelihood is it won't be Liverpool. He's had a baptism of fire. There won't be anything that football can throw at that man that will be more daunting and more terrifying than what he's just lived through. So for that alone, I think I'm going to go with Reece, purely because he's a boy and he's asked to do a man's job and he stepped up and did it. I was, pleased to see his reaction and disappointed with some of the stick he got at times. But they played 6 games together. Those 2 centre-halves didn't lose a game. So, credit to all of the nominees, all the people that were mentioned. I wouldn't have gone with Trent because I think Trent set the bar so high for himself. And it was a 3-month period from sort of Christmas to March when we spoke about it many, many times in our pods. His form dropped away. He wasn't beating the first man with his crosses. He was lackadaisical, a bit lazy. And as Ian said, he was quite right. I think they're being dropped from the England squad. I was listening to Gareth Southgate speaking about it. He responded in the way he would want him to. So all credit to him for doing that. Just wasn't enough for me to be my young player of the year. We're not giving out any trophies or any awards or anything. This is just our take on it. I think all of us have made some really, really valid points there. So cool, great. So on to the next subject for tonight, and that would be our most improved player. Obviously, each season brings a surprise package, a player that we never expected to deliver. And there have been a few of those, I'm sure. So I'll come to you, Dave, for your thoughts on who you would consider to be Liverpool's most improved player.
Tied. Nat Phillips and Thiago.
Okay.
Nat Phillips is obvious. Already touched on that. Thiago, I'm basing that on how he's finished the season and where he was in a lot of people's thinking in March. Probably a matter of about 8 weeks ago, where Thiago was in most people's thinking. He wasn't starting many games for Liverpool at that point, or if he was starting, it was out of necessity because of injuries, and they had to pick him because they had no other options. And he's got, at the end of the season, he's performing how I would have expected him to perform. And I think how most people would have expected him to perform, and doing all of those things that you just spoke about, Steve. in terms of, or you spoke about earlier in terms of, in his own particular way, dominating games. You know, he's got a certain way how he dominates a game of football. It's not a Graham Souness kind of way that you and I would remember, and obviously adore. But you know, or the way that use a different analogy, a way Roy Keane would dominate a game for Manchester United. So he does it in his own way. He does it. He seems to do it with a smile. He has that particular style and panache, and which is easy on the eye. It's nice to look at. Ian said about earlier in the season, you know, I'd rather see him just play 10 good passes rather than just, you know, 5 pretty bad ones and 1 no look one that gets social media going wild. You know, yeah, I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and actually he's made me my words. So that's why he would be. It would be a joint award for most improved player for him.
Excellent, interesting thoughts there. I didn't see that coming, to be honest with you, but now you've said it, I can see the logic behind it. So yeah, good shout. Ian, I'll come to you. Your thoughts on this is one of the categories that you brought to the table in the group chat. So who's your most improved Liverpool player?
I thought for a bit about Mo Salah, believe it or not, because of his numbers this season compared to what it was. I thought about Nat Phillips. Actually thought about Thiago, but the person I landed on was Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones last season was in and around the squad. He was on the fringes and he got in for a couple of games. But at one point this season, before whatever happened on England duty, under 21 duty, he was starting a lot of games, and for the fair few of them, he ran the game. He ran the midfield for me in a few of them games that he played. I'm not saying he's turned into a world beater this season, but I'd have no problems seeing him selected for any Liverpool team now. He's now become a legitimate Liverpool first team player, whereas last season he was all just promise. And I think for me that shows improvement, and he's the most improved player for us. And I can't wait to see where his future at Liverpool takes him. I think he can go on and be an absolutely fantastic Liverpool player. So Curtis Jones for me, Steve.
Good shout. Some good points well made as well. So Lummers, I'll come to you next. I'm sure. Did you pick somebody different, or are you going to eulogise and expand on what these guys have said?
Yeah, no, I've I've picked one of Pauli's, and it's not Thiago, and I do remember the review we had on him a couple of months back, and I'd like to think that I'll put myself in that bracket of I did believe in him a little bit on coming on the way he has done, but I've actually gone with Nat Phillips. My reasoning, a little bit like Reece Williams, really. You know, he's 24, but not really played of an elite level of football. Was it Division 1 or Division 2 in the German league?
2.
Then came back immediately because of injury to come and play for us, and a little bit like Reece thrown in the deep end. And I think there's been a load of games where it suited his style, but then actually he's not a bad footballer. He's just very simple. He's the type of person that just gets it and gives it to a better player, which is exactly what you need from a centre-half that is probably learning his trade at the age of 24 in a team where there's a lot of pressure. And he's thrived on that, and I think he's excelled, and he's sort of surpassed any sort of level that he probably even imagined. And if anything, he has probably put himself out there for quite a big transfer in terms of not just him going on a free or going for 1 million or 2 million. He'd probably go for, I'm not saying double figures, like big double figures, but he probably would go for around anywhere between 10 to 15 million if we were to get rid of him, because he has proven that he can mix it. He's proven that he can play at this level. And I think it speaks volumes for what's happened over the last few weeks with him and Kabak. You know, us potentially not going to fulfil and activate that permanent deal, and that's credit to him. You know, I think it was the game against Arsenal where he completely battered Lacazette, absolutely battered him. And then when we had to play football, we played football. And when you're sort of, you know, built in a way that he is, and you know he's renowned for his heading and his tackling, but we're a team that do dominate possession of the ball, and you've got to be good with the ball. And I think he proved that a lot of the games. I felt. And that's why I've given him most improved player for this season. And I do hope that we keep him. But for his benefit, I hope he gets a good move where he plays regular football, and we'll see where it goes from there for him. So that's my vote.
Excellent, a worthy choice. And the reason why I say it's a worthy choice is it's actually my choice too. Nat Phillips, for me, like you say, an inexperienced 24-year-old, 23, 24-year-old, second tier of German football is not the best place to prepare yourself for what happened to him. He's come into a side where, whether it be Kabak or whether it be Williams alongside him, he's the senior centre-back. That sounds absolutely bizarre, but he is, because of length of service at the club and games he's played. Kabak was still learning the Liverpool way, Kabak was still learning the Premier League way, and, you know, was fine with his feet in the team. I think the point you make about Phillips has probably made up the club's mind in terms of whether we spend the money on Kabak is a really valid point. I wouldn't spend £18 million on Kabak knowing that Phillips can perform like that. In terms of his future, I would like to think the club gave him the choice to say, I need to move because I need to play, or I will stay and be fourth choice, fight for fourth choice centre-back, playing the cup matches, stay at the club because I love it, because I've had an opportunity that I don't want to throw away. And off the back of that conversation, which I genuinely believe has already taken place, Liverpool decided to relinquish their interest in Kabak, which, by the way, I think is the right thing to do given Phillips' performances. It would send out totally the wrong message to younger players in the club who are striving to make that step and get into the first team. We don't necessarily believe there's an opportunity to do so because it's an established first team and it's full of superstars. But he's bucked the trend. He's come in, he's done really, really well. And I'm pleased for him. And I personally hope he stays. I think you could rely on him to be available more than you can Matip. I've said many times before, Matip is a great player, not available. And nobody's going to sign him in the summer because they won't pay his wages because of his injury record. So for me, I totally agree with Lund's. Nat Phillips is my most improved player. He was leading our back line last 10 games of the season, so all credit to him. He deserves a lot of credit for the position we ended up in. So I'm going to put in another one because we've gone through this a bit quicker than I anticipated. So I'm going to come to Ian very shortly, and I'm going to ask for what was your favourite game this season, and why was it your favourite game this season?
Favourite game? Oh, put me right on the spot there, Steve. I think Liverpool versus Leeds at Anfield, because at that time I still had the anticipation of going on and winning big things this season. I was glad Leeds were back in the Premier League because they're one of them teams that I think belong in the Premier League. I've always said that. I think it was a perfect opening game. I think it was full of goals. Well, it was full of goals, wasn't it? It was an exciting game, and it got me set for the rest of the league. So it might be a bit of a cop-out, Steve, because you put me on the spot. But I think out of all the games, the game I enjoyed most, I sat down and watched and enjoyed most, was Liverpool versus Leeds.
Okay, no worries. Was a good game. It was an exciting game. Probably too close for comfort. So they told the Premier League a little bit about what you might expect coming from Leeds this season. They've been a big guilty pleasure for many of us. Their lack of respect for everybody's been a real treat to watch. And they play on the front foot, and they do what they do. And if it's good enough, it's good enough. And if it's not, it's not. And the way that they play wins them enough games to keep them in the Premier League. So, Leeds, please carry on doing what you're doing this season, next season. Dave, come to you. Favourite game and why?
Liverpool 2, Crystal Palace 0. Last game of the season. Cemented top 4, which I thought was, well, you boys all know, I thought that was longer. I thought it was gone about 2 months ago. I thought it was gone about 3 weeks ago. The form we showed leading up to that. But not just that. Do you know what? I know Palace had a couple of chances early on. But that is probably the most comfortable I've felt in a game all season watching Liverpool. That felt a lot like, to me anyway, it felt a lot like watching us pre-lockdown last season. I just felt that felt we've spoken again on this. We've spoken about on this pod a lot that when you think that they're 1-0 up or it's 1-1 or it's 0-0 and you get to the last 10 minutes and you kind of almost during that period pre-lockdown in the title winning season, you knew they were going to score a couple of goals and you know they're going to win the game. And I had that same feeling in that game on Sunday. The front three were back to what you'd kind of expect. Mane in particular, back to what you would expect from Sadio Mane. We were relentless in midfield. The ball just kept, recycling the ball and just keeping on top of them. And the boys at the back were generally untroubled apart from that first sort of 20-minute spell. It was what I probably hoped we would see all season, but we didn't. But it was good enough where we were to do the job at the end of the day. So that would be my one, mate.
So I'm going to jump in front of numbers here because I've been going last and a couple of times you guys have stolen my thunder, so I'm not having it. It's my turn, okay. I'm going to go Manchester United 2, Liverpool 4. I'm going to watch Lummer's reaction now just to see if that was the one he had in mind. I hope it was, because you did it to me with Nat Phillips, mate, so have some of that. I think then having the game delayed really helped us, didn't it? When the protests gave us an extra week to prepare. We went there knowing what the game meant. We went there knowing there was no way we could lose. And obviously we didn't. But it was the manner and how we played. It started in the same way that Dave and I have been screaming at pods for weeks with intensity, with a bit of vigour and enthusiasm. I thought we started well. Then we suffered the setback of a wayward shot from Fernandes hitting Nat Phillips and going into the top corner. Cue Twitter meltdown. Fernandes, the best player in the world. It was going out for a throw-in, by the way, guys, before it hit Nat Phillips. Can't give you any credit for that one, or I'm not going to anyway. We responded really, really well to that in terms of going behind when we'd seen previous weeks we'd collapsed when that happened because we had self-doubt and lack of confidence. Got ourselves on an even keel. Even at 3-1 when they scored, but Rashford took his goal well, and he did take it well to get it to 3-2. If that's the Leicester game of a few months before, there's no chance we see that game out. But something changed in that team. There was a resilience, there was a strength in that team that had been missing for probably 10 weeks, as far as I can see. And I think the players knew there were more chances, and I think the players thought they would score again. And what makes that game the game that I want to nominate is if you see Mo Salah's reaction when he scores, that is incredible. The way he is, the glee of scoring and the relief of scoring just totally consumed him. And he's normally quite cool and reserved, and you can't read a lot into the guy. Barely celebrates his goals, but that was a telling moment for me. That was the moment I thought, actually, is he angling for a move? Because that's not the behaviour of someone that's looking over their shoulder at the exit. Is he a guy who's going to be here for a while? Are we going to get to enjoy the numbers and get to enjoy his performances? But I really, really enjoyed that game, not just because it was the old enemy. No game against Manchester United is fun to watch. We haven't had a great record down there. But it was part of that immense running, dropping 4 points in the last 10 games that gets us to third place for the worst defending champions ever, I might add. So, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I'll come to you, Lummers. Hopefully I stole your thunder, mate. You have to think of something else. So, your shout, mate, your game, and why?
No, you've going last is quite good because you can listen to these games and go, yeah, actually that's not a bad game. But I had two. I'm going to quickly and briefly talk about one of them, which is obviously you can't sort of not talk about the 7-0 win. Against Palace. A few really good performances in there, and I remember Henderson's goal with just a little setback from Trent, and he's whipped this ball top left hand corner, and you know, it's just a fantastic goal. So that's up there. I would say my game of the season would be Burnley 3-0 away, second to last game of the season. And the moment where I could actually sit down and watch the last 15 minutes of the game is when Mane's chipped the ball back post and Nat Phillips has smashed home a header. Because before that, we've always been and watched Burnley and they just need one set piece or they need one delivery, they need one ball in the box, whatever it may be. And we dealt with that time and time again. And then he goes down the other end and just cushions the game and just relieves all that pressure. And then it's the momentum that goes into the last game. So for me, the game of the season for me where I could, a little bit like Powley, finally sit down and watch it properly for what it used to be would have been Burnley after Nat Phillips scoring the second goal just to relieve that little bit of pressure.
Good shout.
So that would be mine.
All good shouts for different reasons. Going back to the Palace game, Ian, how many shots a goal on target did we have in the Palace game? Guess. Bear in mind we scored 7 goals.
13.
Dave?
8.
Numbers?
I've gone really high here. 24.
Dave Powell's bang on the money, mate. He scored 7 goals out of 8 shots on target. That's insane. That just doesn't happen, does it?
No. Yeah, and that's why it wasn't an insane game, wasn't it?
That's. I mean, that was the game where Mo was sub, wasn't he? After he had that little thing about Real Madrid, and he's come on and banged in a hat trick in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was. It was as mad. It was as mad. Sorry, it was as mad a game as the Villa game would be in terms of a defeat. In that, for 20 minutes, Palace were in that game, absolutely in that game, and they had us as they always do because they use Zaha particularly well, and Josh Townsend on the other side. They had us on toast for 15 minutes, and I'm surprised they didn't score. And I think our first goal came from a good save from the keeper, and we go down the other end and score. And
it was early, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was 2 minutes in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it turns into one of those games, and before you know it, we're running away with it. So, on to the next subject, guys. It's this one: goal of the season. I'm going to start here. I'm going to give you 2 nominations, and I'm not going to go into great detail because I'm sure you will. My first nomination for technical ability would be Mo Salah away at West Ham. When he pulls down Shaqiri's long ball, kills it stone dead and finishes it. And obviously the second goal is going to be Alisson's header. First of all, has anyone in here got anything different to say?
No.
All right. So I'll come to you, Ian. Of those 2, which one would you go for?
Alisson.
And why? Obviously why, but tell me about it.
Because it wasn't just your run-of-the-mill goalkeeper goal. I mean, a goalkeeper goal is rare anyway. But the way he headed it, any striker would have been absolutely overjoyed with that header. His direction of it, the way he met it, it was you couldn't have headed that ball any better. If that had been Peter Crouch or Emil Heskey, everybody would have gone, wow, that's an amazing header. He flicked it on, he put it exactly where he wanted it. And mostly because of the situation over there, what Alisson's been through this year with what happened with his dad, what it meant to us for getting us closer to top four. I mean, for me, that goal got us there. Once that goal went in, I think we had the top four done. I was fully confident we were going to get top four once he scored that goal. Just for all those reasons, Steve, and it'll go down as one of them legendary moments for us in Liverpool's history.
Totally agree. Lovers, of the two that I nominated, because they're obvious standout candidates, which one would you go for and why?
Well, my one was actually Mo Salah against United, purely and simply because I've got so many United fans that are mates, and just they've battered me all season. My brother has absolutely killed me all season, and to watch that was just great. But it's Alisson. It was a very, very good feeling up there. One of the best feelings I've ever had. I think I cried. I remember jumping up and down around my room, scared my daughter. Mrs. was just like in complete shock. And I think I cried because of just, all that pressure and that stress that we go under because we absolutely love our football club. And like Ian said, after everything he's been through, for him to lose his dad the way he did, to not be able to go to his funeral, to be, just everything. And for him to come up and do that, amazing. And, just typified everything about what we are as a club. We go through so many bad times and we come out the other end, with everybody, going in the same direction, all wanting to work hard for each other, and it just typified what we are as a team. And it was a great experience and one that I'll never forget. It was amazing.
Totally agree. Well summed up. Dave, you and I are the elder statesmen of the regulars of the pod. We've seen some mad stuff over the years in Liverpool, some stuff that defies belief and you just can't believe what you're watching. Where does Alisson's goal fit in the grand scheme of things for you? In terms of all of
crazy. As Ian said, I mean, it's just they're so rare anyway. I mean, if you were listening to the radio and you're driving along in your car and you listen to 5 Live on a Saturday afternoon, and someone said we're going across the such and such ground, and I don't know, whoever the goalkeeper from whichever team has scored a goal, you're thinking it's a long punt down the field. It's probably a bit slick on the surface. The keeper's been caught out, and excuse me. I think Paul Robinson did one once when he was at Tottenham. I think it might have been just a clearance and is skipped off the turf and over the other goalkeeper. But I mean, the delivery into the box for Alisson is fantastic. He's only got to work off of that, and he's basically, if he gets the direction, if he gets too much neck on it, he's flicked it away and it goes out the other side for a goal kick. If he gets too much head on it, it goes out straight for a goal kick that side. I mean, the delivery is perfect. His timing is perfect. I think I said to you at the time, I had a premonition that he was, as he walked into the box, I thought he's going to get a I didn't think he was going to score for 1 minute. I'm not going to say that because otherwise I need to look up what the lottery numbers are for this week. But I just had a feeling that something was going to happen with him being in the box. And that's probably something that every single game of football I've ever watched in my life, where I've seen the goalkeeper going the opposite in the box, you get a feeling that something's going to happen. Something's going to drop because there's confusion. All of a sudden, you've got another body in there. What do we do? Do we bring another player back? Do we leave someone out? What do we? It just causes confusion. And it was so late. It was so late, not only in the game, but it was so late that he made that decision to get in the box. I mean, literally, I'm surprised the corner hadn't been taken. It was so late. Just everything going for it, and that basically that set up the United win before that did. But we drawn that game. I mean, if we had drawn that game, that's it. It really would have been curtains for top four. But after the euphoria of being United just before that, and then you go and draw to the nemesis that is Sam Allardyce and West Brom. Yeah, that would have been gut wrenching. So Lummer's cried at him scoring the goal. I'd have cried if he hadn't scored. But yeah, absolutely amazing, mate. I mean, you loads of other great goals. Mo scored some fantastic goals this season. Fantastic goals. But yeah, it just there can only be that one goal that wins that title.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything all of you have said. I think the point you make about goalkeepers going up and creating confusion and havoc is a very valid one. I can remember Stuart Pearce bringing David James on up, brought him on up front, and he won a penalty, which Robbie Fowler then missed. That's quite an amusing story, considering we worked really hard to win him a penalty, and then Fowler screwed it wide, which is most on Robbie Fowler like. But yeah,
if you listen to Robbie Fowler, sorry, Steve, you listen to Robbie Fowler's take on that, which you will have done. I know you would have done. It's that he didn't fancy the Thursday nights away in Latvia and things like that. That because they would qualify for Europe, wouldn't they? If he scored.
I don't know about that, mate. He lives in India at the moment, the Indian Premier League, mate. So that's as diverse as it gets, isn't it? Yeah. So I think you're right. Alisson said he wasn't sure whether to go. He looked over the bench, he got nothing, and John Achterberg jumped up. And John Achterberg takes a lot of stick, but for sending out Alisson alone to do that, fair play to him. But it's the fact that the ball's slightly behind him, and he has to flick header it. You watch the shape. He's not looking at the goal when he finishes the header. He's looking at the goal. So the technique's absolutely ridiculous. You know, it's Duncan Ferguson-esque, that header, isn't it? Really, you know, it's fantastic, and the reaction was unbelievable. I'm doing laps in my kitchen. My dog's chasing around the kitchen. And I'm quite mellow these days, mate, because VAR's killed my celebrations of football stone dead. And I stopped to see if there was something wrong with that one as well, I can tell you. But it was fantastic. And like you, mate, I've seen an awful lot of things with the Liverpool Football Club. Last minute goals, good, bad, or indifferent. All manner of things, but that's top of the shop. That's insane to score a header like that. Such a pivotal moment. And it is, Ian is right. That's the reason why we got where we got to at the end of the season. We talk about pivotal moments in games, a big challenge, a crossbar, a close chance lifts teams. That sends a message to the rest of the team for me that we can do this. If your goalkeeper can score in the 94th minute, all the stars are aligned for you to do this. You've just got to do what you do and do it well. And the last 10 games, nobody in the league has got the same form as us. Nobody. So they're all sitting there going, how did Liverpool finish third? Yeah, Alisson's header contributes to it and gives us the impetus to go forward. But 26 points from 30 is an incredible return given the personnel playing at the centre of defence. So I know I keep going on about that, but I find it truly amazing that we've been able to deliver that. So on to the next topic. Coming towards the end now, guys. Next season's expectations as they vacate the pod.
I'm back.
So we'll start with you, Lummers. Next season's expectations. Couple of things to look at. Reaction to what's happened this season. Potential in the transfer window. Our challenges. Those are the things I want you guys to think about when you give me your responses.
So my expectation is for Jurgen Klopp to rally this lot up again. And I don't think they'll need much rallying. I don't think they'll need much sort of enthusiasm, just the normal from Jurgen. And I do think we will come back a lot fresher. I think we'll come back with a better mindset. We'll definitely be more consistent, I believe, and they're the things that we need in order to stay competing in the top two, if not winning the Premier League. So my expectation is that we come back and we're all guns blazing. We're tough to break down. We're tough to break out against in terms of our press. We're more composed in front of goal. We're more composed in the final third in terms of us maintaining possession of the ball. I think there'll be a few little tweaks that they'll do in the pre-season for us to be better at that and not to be not to get out as easy. Back to what we were. Do you want my transfers?
Yeah.
Or should we go round and then come back? Or it's up to you. I don't
Okay. I'll ask questions then when we come to each of you. And the first question I want to ask you is, if it happens, who plays, Canate or Gomez?
Gomez. The reason for Gomez is because although he's coming back from a long-term injury, his body and his mind understands what you need to go through in order to be a starting player in Jurgen's team. Naturally, for anybody that comes into our squad, they are given time, I would say, to sort of mould into the expectations, the intensity of it, the demands, the tactics. So thinking on that side, I don't think we'll see Canate a lot, and I think he'll go with Gomez and Van Dijk. Touch wood, they're both fit and firing. And although there's a rumour going around saying that he wants Canate and Van Dijk to be his starting pair, the guy's 20, 21, 22 years of age, didn't play the 2 games against us. You know, although I think he'll be a good signing for us long term, I would feel more comfortable and confident having Gomez and Van Dijk there, and giving him time to meet the demands of Liverpool football team and understand the expectation and the attitude you need, the intensity you need to be at. And then when he does come in, he looks a part of it. So I would go with Gomez.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to come to Ian now on a similar subject about expectations. I'll ask you a transfer-related question, Ian, as part of this. So in terms of Liverpool, what are you thinking in terms of a reaction? What are you thinking in terms of do we challenge next season? Where are you at? What are your thoughts?
This summer is massively important to us, Steve. There's a little bit of work that needs doing, I think. Contract-wise, I think we need to get our spine extended. Alisson, Fabinho, Salah, Virgil, all coming to the last 2 years of the contract. I'm hoping Mane and Salah both stay. Hopefully Mane will get the rest he needs, because Mane needs a rest. As much as he needs fans back in the ground, he needs a rest. So hopefully that will get to happen this summer. Virgil will have his rest. He'll work towards getting to peak performance and ready for pre-season and onwards. Having Van Dijk and Gomez back next season, if we've got them back from day one, we'll be flying as far as I'm concerned. They're the 2 main players we've missed. And we've not just missed them because they're playing in centre back, we've missed them because we've had to take our 2 leader midfielders out of midfield and putting them in the back. So Henderson and Fabinho have had to go at centre back. I'm expecting us to challenge right up there for the league. I'm not going to say we're going to win. I'm not going to make any stupid bold statements like that. But we'll be right up there. We'll be challenging. And hopefully we'll get into the latter stages of the Champions League as well. You know what, though, Steve? I'd like to see us win a domestic cup as well. whether that be the FA Cup or the League Cup. I prefer the FA Cup, but I like to see a bit of one of the domestic competitions come our way.
I've got a question for you because I saw something on Twitter. Someone put a poll up there saying, "Would you rather get fourth place or would you rather win the FA Cup?" And you said the FA Cup.
Yeah,
So talk to me about that decision then.
Because I'm brought up on a team that wins that exists to win trophies. Steve, as much as not getting in the top four could hurt us further on, I want you don't celebrate as much getting top four as you do as lifting a trophy. You don't you get a trip to Wembley, you get a cup final, you get all those things when you win a cup. For me, it's always going to be, if it's a choice between finishing somewhere or winning a trophy, it'll always be winning a trophy because that's what I've been brought on. I've been brought up on FA Cup final days. I've even been brought up on League Cup final days before it went the way it has now. So I always put a trophy first.
That's kind of a romantic way of looking at football, isn't it, these days? You know, because obviously without finances, you don't get the players, you don't get into the position where that trophy could be a Premier League. So you know, it's interesting to hear what you say because I actually commented when you put that comment on Twitter because I'm a little bit more of a realist rather than a romanticist, and in that regard, I think that making sure you can compete in terms of funding comes first because we waited a long time for the rival fans to stop calling us out for not winning the league title. And without finances, that can't happen. And the FA Cup just doesn't give you that. And now it's been a long time since we won the FA Cup. It'll be 15 years. So it's tough. It's a long time to wait. And I'd rather be playing Champions League football and the money that comes with that, personally, so we could compete for the bigger prizes. Than winning an FA Cup. That's just me. That doesn't mean what you said is wrong. It's just opinions vary, and I want Liverpool to be at the top table for the big events. Yeah, for me, the FA Cup isn't one anymore. It's just lost its sparkle for me, and it did do that little time ago. So coming to you, Dave Powell. Before you go into your expectations, where do you sit on the top four FA Cup scenario?
Yeah, do you know what I do? I really like Ian's take on that.
I do,
but I really do like it. I was thinking that when I watched the FA Cup final the other week, and do you know what? It's probably the first FA Cup final I've watched. As you know, I played cricket as well, Steve. So FA Cup final was always on the same day that I was playing cricket. So I reckon I had a season off. I didn't play one year, and that it just happened to coincide with being 2001. And that is the last FA Cup final I watched from minute 1 to minute 90, minute 94, whatever it would be, until this year. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I miss all those. As a kid growing up, I missed the whole build-up. You know, the morning, the show would come on at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and you'd have all that time with you see the teams at the hotel and all that. It is really romantic. You're absolutely right what you're saying, Steve. It really is, and I do. It would be nice for us to be there at the end of the season and winning that. But if you're saying that you're not going to finish in the top four and you therefore haven't got the chance of winning the Champions League, and all of the money and the sponsorship and all of those things that go with that, it's not even a contest. It's not even a contest, unfortunately.
A little wry grin for me, and
yeah,
doesn't mean what you said wrong, Ian.
No, not at all. And his reasons for saying it are spot on, because you think about all those guys like, they won league titles as well, but you think about Phil Neal, Alan Kennedy, Graham Souness, Kenny Dalglish, Alan Hansen, all those players from yesteryear, and all the trophies they won, and not so much FA Cups, but littered in there were a load of League Cups which is even further down the priority chain, right? So, and but what there wasn't then, if you won the European Cup, you got in it the following season. If you won your league title, you got in the European Cup the following season. And that was the only two ways you got in the European Cup. There was no Champions League. There wasn't second, third, and fourth place getting into Champions League, either via qualifiers or directly. So, yeah. Someone said to me a little while ago, how about making the FA Cup a Champions League spot? But what happens if you get... This is not... Wigan Athletic won the FA Cup one year and got relegated.
In answer to that,
how would they compete the following year? They wouldn't.
In answer to that, if I may, Dave, along the way, Wigan Athletic beat teams that were ranked above them because they went into the game with weakened squads. Wigan Athletic gave it credit and it deserved. If you suddenly put a Champions League spot at the end of the FA Cup, we don't play our kids against Aston Villa.
No,
doesn't happen.
Of course.
So that is a good point, but that's taken away a little bit by the fact that there's so much riding on it. You get the problem with that is got a bit more into detail than I anticipated here, but the problem with that is if you turn the FA Cup into a prize for UEFA, you take something away from the English game and it becomes about UEFA. So as good an idea as it is, I don't think we need to be blowing smoke up UEFA's backside any more than we already do by handing them the oldest trophy in world football as a means to get into their tournament. I think UEFA have got lots of questions to answer and lots of self-evaluation to do in terms of their role in European football anyway. I don't think the FA Cup belongs in that equation, but it's interesting. Is that you, Alex, wanting to say something?
Am I off mute now?
Yes, you are.
Sorry. No, I was going to say just off of what we've been speaking about the FA Cup. After everything we've been through the last couple of years, and there's a lot of talk about generating money for these lower league clubs. And how much is it again that you win if you win the FA Cup? And tell me if I'm wrong. Is it like 4 million?
It's probably about that. Yeah.
Is it as cheap as that?
I thought it was more than that, but.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I mean, I've not read it, but I remember someone saying to me it's not a lot. And you think from us getting third and qualifying for the Champions League has been best part of 140 million, probably more. So
it was 58 initially, and then another 40 for something else. So just under 100 million, which is ridiculous, isn't it?
And was there another 36 million on TV money or TV rights or something that we've made?
There will be when that comes through. Yeah.
So, but just going back to the FA Cup. Sorry, Pat. It was just about if we want to allow these lower league clubs to generate money for them to sort of stay in the league, in the football league. I think there might come a point where we might have to say to the Premier League teams, you can't be in it, but then you lose the whole purpose of like a Luton Town or like a Chesham United from the non-league going to play against Liverpool at Anfield. You lose all of that, and it's not the same as going to like St James's Park or. So it's a difficult one, isn't it, the FA Cup?
You are right. I mean, you look at teams draw, I don't know, Northampton Town draw Liverpool at Northampton Town. We go down there with a weakened squad. We draw 1-1. We bring them back to Anfield. Anfield's full. They go out 5-0 because we put in a better team. The gate receipts keep them afloat for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
The stuff that goes on with the players and experience of that can propel some to greater things. So I think that's really important to hold on to that. I don't know what the answer is regards to the FA Cup, and that's certainly, if we wanted to talk about competitions, that potentially for another pod, because I think that needs some life injected into it. I don't know how to do it. But before we lose track of where we should be, we need to hear from Dave on his thoughts about this season in terms of what you're expecting next year, where we challenge, what changes would you like to see, and then I'll give you a transfer question when you've done that.
Well, sell all the dead wood. That raises about 165 million. Sign Mbappe and Haaland.
Stop it. You cantankerous sod.
I know.
Let's be serious.
No, deadly serious. I think I agree with Ian. I think it's quite a big summer. I think it's a big summer, not just transfer windows. I think it's a big summer in terms of number one, Virgil van Dijk not going to the Euros. Good shout. Joe Gomez not going to the Euros. Good shout. Listen, I'm a little bit different from Ian. I will watch England in the Euros and I will want them to win. Okay, so Jordan Henderson being there, yeah, there's part of me that's quite happy about that, but there's also part of me that would be quite happy if Jordan Henderson didn't make the cut for that 26-man squad. So that's a start. That's a big summer for those guys, and other guys having a rest. Ian already said about him: Mane, Salah, Firmino, Alisson, etc., etc., etc. Pretty much everybody else, right? So. On the other side of that, what does concern me a little bit is Andy Robertson will probably go and play every single minute of the Euros or for the 3 games that Scotland are in it. So,
there goes our Scottish contingent. Gone. Thanks. Well done, Dave.
No, listen, fire some questions in on that if they want to. Anyway, so he's not going to get a rest, but he can have a rest when they're out. We do need to clear out some players. Naby Keita, for me, does not have a future at the football club. He hasn't got a present at the football club, let alone a future. So, cut him adrift. I don't know what you said the other day, Steve. If we offered 25 million for him, would you take it? Yes, I would. And I think we just need to. We're not going to go out and buy big hitters as much as we've discussed it on this pod before. We're not going to buy Haaland. We're not going to buy Mbappe. We're not going to buy Harry Kane. I know some of you wouldn't want him. Anyway, I would. I think that guarantees goals. And I think he'd be an outstanding player for us. But we're not going to get him. So let's be realistic. It's got to be a really canny transfer window. A really canny transfer window. And if he does well there, Konate, I haven't seen enough of him. I don't know. We go back to the Gomez or Konate thing. I would choose Joe Gomez because he's the man in possession. I haven't seen enough of Konate to know whether he's good or not, or good enough, to step in straight away. But yeah, you'd like to think Mr. Edwards will do his bit, and he's got some things in the pipeline that perhaps none of us know about. I'm thinking things like a Fabinho. I'm not saying that Fabinho was a complete unknown because he wasn't, but that was all done and dusted really quickly, really quickly. And I rather than drawing out Naby Keita process where you end up probably paying a bit more than you should have done. So, that's what I'd like to see happen. Whether any of that does happen, I don't know, because I don't think any of us really know how much FSG are gonna back the manager and back the club. They need to do something, but what they're going to do, they're businessmen, they're canny businessmen, they know what they're doing. So they're not going to stuff us. They're not going to do a Glazers down the road to us. So. And then depending on what happens for the back of that, depends how far we go into the season. I think having everyone back, hopefully fit and firing, touch wood, we stand a good chance of challenging City again. And I do think sitting in out, we're talking about Liverpool, and I'm a Liverpool fan, we're all Liverpool fans, but anyone finishes above Manchester City next season will win the league.
Agreed. So before I give you your transfer question, when you spoke about selling Naby Keita, Ian either developed a twitch or he doesn't agree because he shook his head. Which was it, Ian? Was that a scratch or don't you agree? Say again.
It was you're never getting 25 million for Naby Keita. It's not happening.
Right. Just before you finish that, thank God it wasn't no, don't sell him, shake of the head, mate, because
No.
we've had him for 3 years and he's never delivered.
No, if you're never getting 25 million for him, not happening.
I agree.
I think
you're
he'll go
probably
out
right,
on
mate.
loan somewhere next season with a view to a permanent signing later on.
Yeah.
I hope not. Not at 105 grand a week, mate. He needs to be sold back to the Bundesliga, if you ask me, where it suits his game, because I think the Premier League's too intense for him. So your transfer question is, Dave, we've all spoken about Basuma at Brighton being a really good fit to replace Ronaldo. So he does the Anfield lean in his new shirt, his Liverpool shirt, which means we've signed him. First game of the season, everybody's fit. Who's your midfield three?
Can I have the fact? Can I have the fact that Genie has actually done a U-turn and he's signed a new contract?
No, because he's signed for Barcelona today, mate.
Has he really?
Yeah.
3-year deal.
Honestly, didn't know that.
Less money.
Been too busy. Don't read the gutter press, unfortunately. But that's why I come on this. That's why I come on this show to get the news. What else is going on? Is COVID gone yet?
Not in Hounslow.
So, well, Thiago. I think Thiago and Fabinho, the way we've ended the season, pick themselves. So those two and Jordan Henderson. That's my midfield three.
Interesting.
Because I think it was again Ian. I think Ian alluded to it earlier. You know, quite often we get guys that come in and they take their time and it doesn't happen straight away for them. I think Basuma's a good player, by the way. Do you know what I think? Probably what Jurgen Klopp might have learnt from this year is he needs to probably do a bit more rotation. Certainly in midfield areas. Well, I think we've picked the same. You could have pretty much named the 11 over the last 2 years who's going to play every game, and there might have been one change. Back four was the same. Goalkeeper was the same.
Can I play a bit of devil's advocate on that one?
Yeah.
With the exception of Manchester City, you touched on their resources, their ability to do things that no one else can.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody else in the league can afford to rotate in the way that we would like to see. I certainly think that Liverpool's system is rigid, so rigid, that doesn't lend itself to rotation. We've spoken before about the Euros getting in the way and making tactical changes this summer because lots of the players won't be around the training ground until late. They'll come back late, and before you know it, the season will be upon us. I still stand by, if everybody had been fit, Thiago would have played a lot less games than he did. He would have been an impact player.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I think if the bodies at the club allow for Liverpool to go back to that two ball recyclers and a holder, I think they'll do it. And I think we might see less of Thiago next season than we did this season. I get that he's performed well, but our midfield shape has been anything other than what you would have recognised, what I would have recognised, what Alex and Ian would have recognised, and it's not been a system. It's been off the cuff football, and I don't think Thiago in the midfield, unless you're playing a double pivot and you've got like the lad from Lyon, however you say his name, is available for 30 million euros, would be a great player to play in front of a double pivot. But we've spoken about this before. That's a system change. That changes the job of the fullbacks. That changes Fabinho's job. That changes the guy who plays alongside him. It makes the dynamics of the team very, very different.
Yeah.
Whilst I think Thiago's a magnificent footballer, and he genuinely is, and without him we wouldn't have got to where we've got to, but that's not the Liverpool side that we recognise. In Klopp's number one system, I still struggle to see how Thiago fits into that.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm just saying, I think that's where he will go. I think that's where it would go, rather than necessarily what I would do. Sorry, Lum.
No. Honestly, it's okay. I've said before, I think he's been learning for the last season. I don't think he's ever played that high up the pitch to go and press. And I think I like the idea of Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago, as what Pauli said, because if you're pressing with such an intensity from two midfield players, I think the idea is for him just to get on the ball, and it just comes to a point where this other team can't get out, therefore they've got to sit in.
Right. Let me just come in there and ask you a question. Of the three you've just mentioned, who's pressing and who's holding?
Fabinho's holding.
Thiago can't press the same way that Ronaldo did.
No, you're right, he can't. And that's when I say about he's been learning for such a long time.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have two centre-halves who are the best one-on-one defenders, your two full-backs are pushing higher. Therefore, the game is a lot more compact. If you've noticed in the last few games, he's been really, really good on the ball in the last 20 minutes because we have pressed a lot better and in the right moments. And I think that's where he's excelling a little bit more. I think the game goes past him when teams can get past us and they can get out easy. I remember watching John Stones when we lost 3-1 to him at Anfield. He's glided past 3 players. Last year, that never have happened. So it's all those little things that have a factor in how we press, and two centre-halves, full-back pushing on, game gets congested, we nick it, we go forward again. If you're doing that constantly, it's very hard to figure out ways to stop that and get past it. And I think that's where we'll see better Thiago. But I agree with you. I don't see him in a midfield three, because we'll go back to what we're good at next year, because a lot of teams have had time off of us pressing the absolute life out of them. That's my opinion of it.
Right, cool.
I think what we forget though is neither Jordan Henderson, Fabinho or Thiago were going to play 40 odd games this season. They're not them type of players. No. Henderson misses 10 to 15 games a season. Thiago's record in the past has been exactly the same, and Fabinho picks up niggles. So I don't think it's just going to be them 3 players. I think there's going to be rotation and injuries all over the place. You're going to see that many different combinations of midfield next season. It's going to be hard to keep track of.
Fair comment. Right, guys, listen, before we go, I'm going to answer this question from Ryan. I'm going to go around the room and get your answers. And then, Alex, you've got 3 questions that, if you're okay with that, give 1 question to each of us before we close. So we'll all answer Ryan's question now. To start with you, Ian, who do you want to win on Saturday? Just give us a very brief synopsis of why.
Can we get any beef and then couldn't care less?
No, come on. Don't sit on the fence.
I think Man City are going to win at some point anyway. So I wanted us to do the League and European Cup double before they did. But at the same time, I can't stand Chelsea. So I'll go with City. As much as I can't stand that, I'll go with City.
Alex?
City, Chelsea don't deserve it.
Dave?
Interesting, Ian said that about the... I felt exactly the same. 1985, Ian. Everton were in the cup final and it looked like they were going to win the double. And United beat them. And I was over the moon.
Norman Whiteside curler, I remember it well.
Norman Whiteside curler, exactly. And I felt exactly the same. I thought they hadn't... Magnificent. The double was a really rare thing. And I was like, yeah, they haven't done it. We haven't done it, but they haven't done it. So that's brilliant. And then the following year we did it. So that was like vindicated. And so based on that, I was going to say City, but based on Ian's logic, I think I'd probably take Chelsea winning that at the weekend and then us doing the Champions League and League double next year. How about that?
I'll take that. My answer would be if City win the Champions League, we're all in trouble because they've never given that trophy, that tournament, the respect it deserves. Instead of being part of the fabric of their football club, if they win that, they've got the resources and they've got the Barcelona infrastructure with Tiki Bergenstein, who used to be the Barcelona director of football at Manchester City, and another guy above him. Makes Manchester City really, really dangerous in terms of their project if they win that, because they will be forced to embrace that tournament. And it becomes an obsession for someone like Guardiola because he did when he was at Barcelona. They will be very, very dangerous if they win it. So begrudgingly, I don't want to see Manchester City win it. Really hurts me to say I'd rather Chelsea win it. So, Alex, your 3 questions, just chuck them randomly at the guys. You've got 3, so we'll one each, and we'll close on that because it's been an hour and 20 minutes, and it's been good fun, and we'll finish with that.
No, that's been good. So, I'm going to go with Ian on the first question. So, Robbo's played 38 games. Obviously, not missed a game. What happens with Tomiskas? And do we get a backup left back for next season?
Funny you say that, because about a week ago I tweeted, probably you've seen it, about a left back that's on the free is available on the free. Just left Southampton, Ryan Bertrand. I've left Simicast though and been Ryan Bertrand in for a couple of seasons. He's got experience. He's not great with injuries, so he won't be expecting to play much anyway. I don't think there's many other people that say that would say what I would say, but I've been Ryan Bertrand and let Simicast go and let Bertrand play when Robbo needs a rest.
I'm also right in saying that Patrick Van Arnholt is available on a free as well.
When it came to my question, I was going to say, going back to Ian's question, Van Arnholt is absolute. No, it's a good shout, Dave. Van Arnholt's absolute rocket, mate. It's really quick.
I didn't know he was out on a free transfer. Otherwise, I would have said him.
Both of those would be really viable options, I think. Really
keep your eye on Ian's tweets later, mate. Ryan Bertrand wants to get injured if you on.
And like you said, both experienced in Premier League. They know what it holds to play in a lot of games, intense games. So you'd rather go for that short term. Good. Yeah, like you said, you take both of them based on where they've been. Do you guys want to elaborate on that at all?
No. Go on. Question 2.
Question 2. I'm going to go with Dave. Would we have challenged for the title if we kept Fabinho in midfield and just played 2 natural centre halves for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think we would. We've used this word already on this pod, haven't we, tonight? It's romantic to think we would have done, but we wouldn't have done because we still wouldn't have beaten Man City. As much, pains me to say it slightly, but we wouldn't have beaten Man City, and we would have come unstuck in some other games as well. I think, even if they played all the time. Steve said earlier, they've been fantastic. They've played all those last 10 games, I think, and done a great job. But 6 games unbeaten, 6 wins, or whatever. So brilliant. But I also think that Fabinho, if he'd been available all the time to play in midfield, would have picked up injuries, so he wouldn't have been in a playing midfield anyway. He doesn't miss a load of games, Fabinho, but he misses a handful every season, doesn't he? So
yeah. I mean, when that question was asked to me, I felt it's a lose-lose really for Klopp, because if he does go with 2 centre halves for the full season, they could be making so many mistakes, and we're probably not sitting here talking as positively as what we are about Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. And if we'd have gone with that, and those mistakes would have been more sort of known, and we would have dropped more points, we would have gone, well, Fabinho's good enough to play there, and we've probably got good enough midfield players to cover what he does.
Yeah.
For me, it's a lose-lose.
Can we also remember as well that Fabinho, when he first went back to centre half, he was outstanding, and we were still, one way or another, we were still getting results. Fabinho then got injured and came out of the team full stop. And I think you'll find I think that's when our form went down the pan.
Yeah.
Completely went down the pan. And we were losing games regularly. So that's a different situation. Fabinho not being in the team at all. And it was only when our form was absolutely pants and Fabinho came back into the fold and moved him back into midfield that we picked up again. So, yeah, not for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I would have played him in the games where he was playing centre half because I do feel that we have enough in midfield to still win games, be on top of games. And unfortunately, there were times where we weren't, and I think it goes back to having more quality and getting rid of Deadwood and bringing in some new faces, fresh faces. So, yeah, I agree with you, bud. Last one. To the host. Bobby has ended the season quite well, but is he a problem going into next season?
Don't think problem's the right word. He did finish the season well, right? His form was good. It wasn't brilliant. It was better, shall we say. You wouldn't say he's like a world beater. He's not the player who joined us Hoffenheim. He's not got the same zest, the same energy. But then we've asked an awful lot of him in the last 3 years. I think as one of the things that Liverpool need to do is need to address that. When they brought Jota into the team, I thought Jota would have been direct opposition for Bobby. I'm not convinced anymore. I think Jota is more competition for Sadio Mane on the left-hand side. So the comment here from Ryan is very true. When Bobby plays well, Liverpool plays well. I agree. But I don't think that can be said that that's the only player in the world that can give that to your team. That position is the focal point of your attack. It's the link between the midfield and the front men. It's the link between the centre of the pitch and the wide men. Any creative footballer with any ability would be able to influence games from that position. So I don't think we need to get it twisted and think that Bobby's your man and he's the only man that can do that. He's had 12 months where his form's been very, very poor and been well documented by Bobby fans and people who aren't so keen. I think there needs to be competition there next season. I think it's an area we need to look at. I don't think not just the man to try that. And I don't think we're going to change our shape. And I really don't like 4-2-3-1, where you put somebody else up there and play somebody closer to them. I think that congests the field and stops the space that the right men want to use. So the answer to that would be, yes, his form was pleasing and it certainly contributed to get to third place. But it isn't the answer because he's quite capable of returning to the form that we've seen for the last 12 months. So absolutely keep him in the club. Don't sell him because you're not going to get what you want for him anyway because he's past his peak in terms of his footballing powers. But certainly bring someone in to challenge him in that position. In 2 years' time, young Harvey Elliott might be in a position to play more centrally and do that because that kid's got the world at his feet, but certainly not next season.
No, I don't want to sort of go on too much, but you talk about formations. Just very quickly, just your opinion, Steve. Would you like to see the 4-2-4 that was against City away? Would you ever like to see that again?
I don't think we can because of the way we use the fullbacks. I would rather see three across the back. So Gomez, right centre back, Canate centre back, Van Dijk left centre back, Robertson and Trent as your wing backs, sit Fabinho in front, and then be really creative with what's in front of those guys with the players that are available. I just think it works because when you break down the transitions quick, all they do is open out, Fabinho drops in to make it orthodox back four. And you've got Van Dijk sitting there left back, not getting on the back of him. And you've got Gomez sitting there right back with all the pace in the world. You might get round him once or twice. I personally would love to see them go in the back three with good wing backs.
Nice. Yeah, I like the idea of that. Definitely. But there were my 3 questions that I received earlier, so I thought I'd bring them to the pod.
Excellent, guys. It's been a pleasure. It's an hour and a half, so it's a bit longer than we anticipated. Lots of things covered. Good chat with 3 lads I like talking about football with. So thanks for coming on. Nice for you to make an appearance, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me again.
He'll be back with the physio tomorrow, no doubt.
Or my agent.
Couldn't resist it. But before we go, I need to do something right because Ian's been tweeted all day how he set up his room and his artwork and he's got his Liverpool goalkeeper's top on. What I want to do is just to let everybody see Ian's setup. There you go. Look at that. All the artwork behind him. He's got the Allison top on. He's made an effort. There's no way I could have finished this show without sharing that with everybody.
That's brilliant.
Top draw.
Yeah, that is good.
Right, gents. Once again, thanks very much for coming on. Monday night, we're doing the 2001 Revisited because it's the anniversary of that. If you're available, come on. Dave's got a couple of extra guests coming in. Promise it to be a good show. I'll obviously document it and advertise it on Twitter. But have a good evening, chaps. Let's go and find out Man United have been beaten by Unai Emery yet.
Oh, if only.
Yeah,
Take care,
definitely.
guys. See you soon.
Take it easy.
Well done.
Cheers, guys.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
See you later.